The Lives of the Saints by Father Alban Butler, November 29th, Blessed Cuthbert Mayne. The English Collegium of Douai was founded in 1568. In the early years of the persecution, the authorities in England used to make a distinction between priests ordained there or in other seminaries abroad and Marian priests who had received priestly ordination in England. The first seminary priest who paid for his mission with his life was Blessed Cuthbert Mayne. He was born in Launceston, near Barnstaple, in 1544. An uncle of his, a schismatic priest, educated him in Protestantism. Cuthbert studied at Barnstaple School. At the age of 18 or 19, he was ordained a minister, without any inclination or preparation. His uncle then sent him to St. John's College, Oxford, where the young man met Dr. Gregory Martin and Blessed Edmund Campion, who was still a Protestant. Cuthbert soon realized that the truth was in Catholicism, but he did not dare to leave Protestantism for fear of losing all he had and remaining destitute. Martin and Campion left for the English college in Douai, and from there they wrote several times to Cuthbert to invite him to join them. In 1570, shortly after Cuthbertus had obtained his degree, one of these letters fell into the hands of the Bishop of London, who had all the Oxford students whose names were on it arrested. Cuthbert was then absent, so that he escaped from prison almost miraculously. But that incident overcame his last resistance. He immediately abjured Protestantism and in 1573 entered the College of Douai. 3 years later, he was ordained to the priesthood and obtained a bachelor's degree in theology. In April 1576, he was sent to England with Blessed John Payne. Cuthbert Mayne was the 15th priest from Douai to be sent to England. Blessed took up residence in the house of Francis Tregian in Golden of Cornwall, where he passed himself off as a servant. We know very little about Cuthbert's ministries. What is certain is that his presence aroused suspicion because a year later, the mayor, Richard Grenville, went through Tregian's house inch by inch. Mayne was arrested for wearing an Agnus Dei around his neck. Mr. Tregian was also arrested. The mayor dragged Blessed Cuthbert from the house of one nobleman to that of another. Finally, in Launceston, he locked him up in a horrible dungeon and chained him to a post of the bunk. About the feast day of St. Michael, Father Mayne was tried for several crimes, for having obtained from Rome and published in Golden a faculty of absolving the Queen's subjects. In reality, it was a copy of the indulgence of the Jubilee of 1575. For having taught in the prison at Launceston that the Bishop of Rome retained spiritual power over England, to which 3 unlettered men bore witness. For having brought to England and given to Monsignor Tregian a vain and superstitious object, vulgarly called Agnus Dei, for which no proof was adduced, and for having celebrated Mass for a missal, chalice, and priestly vestments had been discovered in Golden. All this was contrary to the statutes of the Queen. Cuthbert Mayne was one of the martyrs beatified by Leo XIII. His feast is celebrated in Plymouth and some other dioceses in England. The Carmelites of Lanherne possess an important relic of the skull of the Blessed. It comes from Launceston, where the head was exposed after the execution. Francis Tregian was dispossessed of his possessions and was in various prisons for almost 30 years. He died in Lisbon in 1608, and several miracles were attributed to his relics. It is noteworthy that none of those whom Father Mayne reconciled with the Church apostatized from the Catholic faith, no doubt because they had known it thanks to such an excellent teacher.